Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. We got the whole crew again. I'm Serge. Joining me, we have Jer, Alex, and Liam. Reminder that this podcast is brought to you by you with your support at the Patreon at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. We couldn't do it without you, so thank you so much. Guys, I'm so excited. We're all here again.
Yeah.
Serge, we're glad to have you back. It was
we missed you.
It was a stressful week.
The audience missed you.
I had to talk so much more than usual.
Yeah, it's all good. All right, let's start with our opening segment, the best card you're not playing. Up today is me, and I want to talk about a pet card of mine that I think is really good. I think more people should be playing this, and that card is Trade Routes. Trade Routes is a blue enchantment for 2 mana. It costs a 1 and a blue, and it has 2 activated abilities. For 1 generic, you can return a land to your hand, and for 1 generic and discard a land, you can draw a card. Now, I found in turbo land strategies, oftentimes it is more significant to play a land than it is to ramp. And so effects like Trade Routes, Oboro, Palace in the Clouds, and Maluko, the Clouded Mirror are 3 sort of effects that let you repeatedly play a land over and over and over, and effectively go infinite with effects like Fast Bond. Or if you've got Course of Crufix in play and you want to gain another life, or if you've got sort of any effect that cares about landfall, you can, if you don't have another land in hand, you can use this effect to trigger landfall over and over and over. And if you've got another effect like Gitrog Monster, or what's the Selesnya boy that gets bigger if there's lands in your graveyard?
Knight of the Reliquary.
Knight of the Reliquary.
The old Selesnya boy.
Incorrect.
Selesnya boy.
No. Yeah, you can use the discard effect to get additional value or to dig or all sorts of fun stuff like this.
It's good when you flood out on lands.
Absolutely. No, like Trade Routes is really interesting, and there might be other ways to do other interesting stuff like that, but I believe if you're playing, if you want to brew around a land strategy, in particular a turbo land strategy that cares more about the act of playing a land than ramping, then Trade Routes is a really cool, often overlooked card that can fuel a lot of engines.
Turbo land. It's about the acceleration, not the top speed.
Yeah. How quickly can you get going? Yeah. So I don't know. I think that card is sweet. All right. Let's get into today's episode. Today we are talking about Dominaria. It's important that you pronounce that correctly. That I learned at the pre-cruise.
It's not Dominaria.
Yeah, Dominaria. Say it right. Aria.
Pardon?
It's the Song of Dominia.
Yeah, it's the
It's
aria
the aria.
of Dominia.
It's
Dominaria.
so says lead creative Kelly Diggs.
Yep.
It's like the
Dominar.
It's like
Well,
the
no,
casino.
there's this thing about media that gets put into the world where, actually, you know what? This is not a media studies podcast, but Kelly, I have bad news for you. If everyone else pronounces it Dominaria, that might just be what it is.
So let's talk about our set today. So as usual, we're going to break it up into 2 episodes. Today we want to talk about the cards we're really excited about, the cards that we think are going to see, that at least we might disagree, but the cards that we think we'll see play in the format. Either new staples, powerful cards, or maybe sort of fringe playable ones. We're going to go through it in Wooburg order, followed by gold, then artifact, and then finally lands. And anything before we just jump right into it?
There's a lot of cards.
There's a lot of cards, so we're gonna try and turbo.
I mean, I guess one quick thing to say about this set is that there are a lot of cards that are medium, and then not a whole lot of like format staples. This is going to be in every X color deck, so keep that in mind when you're thinking about these cards.
Yeah. So let's start with the Banali Marshal for white. It's a 3/3 human knight. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. Jer.
I think this card's really good in white weenie decks. It's probably the most efficient Anthem creature that I can think of. It's hard to cast, so you can pretty much only play it in mono white decks, but I think that's fine. This card's playable.
Sweet. Next up, we have Danitha. Oh, this episode's going to be such a nightmare for me.
I was thinking this.
Danitha Caption, Paragon.
Thank God we have
3 mana, 2/2 for 2 and a white. Legendary human knight has first strike, vigilance, lifelink,
Sold.
and aura and equipment spells you cast cost 1 less. Alex.
How many keywords can we do?
All of them.
This card just seems super efficient. It has like way too much text on it. I think you would maybe even play this if it didn't have the aura and equipment spell, but you're probably playing this in a deck that has one or the other or both.
Sweet.
Also, the 6 stained glass sword.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, next up, we have Dauntless Bodyguard. This is a single white for a 2/1 human knight. As it enters the battlefield, choose another creature you control, and you can sacrifice it to give that creature indestructible. Liam.
So for those of you who watched the last episode, where we ranked all of the Savannah Lions, this one's fourth. It's
jumping right up there.
Yeah, it's worse than Kytheon, Soldier of the Pantheon, and one other one. Can't remember which one I'm going to say, but...
Isamaru.
Isamaru, right.
Yeah.
Worse than Isamaru, better than all the other ones. This card's good. You'll play it in the decks that want the 2/1s for 1. It has a nice upside. And it's a human.
And a knight.
I think it's possible this is better than Soldier of the Pantheon.
You know what, Jer? We'll save it for some other show.
All right, next up, we have History of Benalia. This is our first saga that we're going to talk about today. So, 1, white. It is an enchantment, and it has the following chapters. 1 and 2 are both create a 2/2 white knight creature with vigilance, and the alt, if you will, the third chapter, knights you control, so not all creatures, only knights you control get +2/+1 until end of turn. Jer.
I think this is just a reasonable mid-range card, but especially potent in a token strategy. You get two men for the price of 1 card, and you get a really nice boost the second turn if they get to stick around, especially because they have vigilance. You get to attack with 2 4/3s with vigilance, and then they're probably trading off for multiple creatures, or definitely getting at least your card's worth of investment. And 3 mana is really not a huge amount to pay for that.
Yeah,
This
solid.
is mythic, eh?
Yeah.
Holy heck.
It's a really good card.
It's solid, yeah. All right, next up, we have Knight of Grace. This is a 2-mana 2/2 for 1 and a white. It's a human knight, has first strike, has hexproof from black, which is kind of a neat sort of change on the pro-black, so the white and black knight don't just like blow by each other. And Knight of Grace gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a black permanent. Alex.
Hey, it's your boy sequel to Knight of Glory.
Yeah.
It's comparable to that card in a little, in some ways. Like, Hexproof from black is not quite as good as Protection from black, but it gets pumped if they have a black permanent.
Or if you do.
Or
If you're playing black-white.
Yeah, if any player.
okay, get in my gray weenie deck.
Yeah, not bad, eh?
I love it.
All right, next up, we have Lyra Dawnbringer. 5-mana legendary angel for 3 white. It has flying, first strike, lifelink, and other angels you control get +1/+1 and lifelink.
Why do they have to do this to my girl Baneslayer Angel?
Yeah.
Just never getting played ever again, right? Like,
I agree.
Like the protection from demons and dragons is like flavorful and like maybe makes you like more powerful against like Da Vinci Code related things, but like not particularly good in the Highlander format. The other angels you can, Alex, look, I know, I know that, but yeah, the other angels you control getting +1/+1 on lifelink, sort of gravy. Like you're probably going to play like maybe Restoration Angel in a deck that plays this deck, plays this card as well. Yeah, maybe Avacyn.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this card is, I think, yeah, just gonna. If you were playing Baneslayer Angel, you're now gonna play this card instead.
Is it mean to play this alongside Entreat? Like, that's just win more.
Are there enough angels for Angel Tribal? Can you do Celestia
it's
angels?
close.
I know, actually, like I'm only half joking.
I actually think you're more likely Azorius, but
Yeah, there was someone who was playing kind of a stompy deck actually.
because there's what's her name, the green-white one that gives you hexproof. Sigarda's kind of nuts.
Yeah, and there are a bunch of Sigardas that are all very
both
reasonable.
Sigardas are playable.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we're into the Abzan Angels. So
Something like that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
all these cards are
Black
nuts.
Angels.
Didn't somebody just say what was the other color? You told me?
Azorius.
Blue,
Blue.
Azorius.
Oh, yeah.
You get
Okay.
to play like Bruna.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Illusory Angel?
So Bant Angels. Okay, we'll talk about this. We can workshop this. Cavernous Soul naming Angel. Your opponent's just like, what?
Oh no.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we have Seal Away. Seal Away is a kind of a fun little enchantment. 2-mana enchantment with flash for 1 and a white. When it ETBs, exile target tapped creature an opponent controls. Jer.
This is a really efficient removal spell. I'm not sure how much play it'll get, because you don't want the ability for your opponent to get their creature back. So like stuff like Journey to Nowhere and Oblivion Ring type effects typically don't see a ton of play. But if you're hurting for removal, this is definitely a playable card. The flash on it really makes it a big deal.
Yeah, I mean,
but the fact that it doesn't hit vigilance creatures it's kind of a bummer.
Well, or creatures that just don't need to attack. I was gonna say this is like sort of better and worse than Journey to Nowhere, because like you can flash it, but the creature has to be tapped. So.
But the creatures don't have to tap. Like, you can still hit mana dorks, you can still hit like creatures with activated abilities like Grim Lavamancer that don't usually attack. So it is much better than like the ones that deal damage to target attacking or blocking creature, for example.
Than Condemn, I think, is the comparison I was seeing.
Yeah, it's definitely better at hitting the utility creatures than
It's
stuff
also
like
got
Condemn.
sweet art.
Yeah. All right, next up we have Shale, Voice of Plenty. This is a 4-mana, 3/4 legendary angel, has flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. And for 6 mana, 4 green, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Alex.
Serge, you put this one on the list.
I did. I think this is interesting in sort of like Selesnya mid-range. I think the 3/4 flying body by itself is kind of fine. It gives you a little bit of extra utility if you're trying to go for like Selesnya mid-range or Hate Bears. And late game, particularly if you're in a deck with a lot of mana dorks and playing something like the green land.
Gaia's Cradle.
Gaia's Cradle. There's the opportunity to get a lot of value out of that. Because you can play Gavony Township in that deck already as sort of like an onboard trick to change the math. And this costs the same as Gavony Township. Because Township is tap it and 5 other. So
Tap it and 4 other.
oh, this is one more than Township. Sorry, I thought Township was
I think this card is great in creature combo as well. It's just like forces them to have an extra removal spell to remove this before they can disrupt your creature combo, and it's another way to go off with Devoted Druid and infinite mana.
Yeah.
You can just make your
Yeah.
make your team arbitrarily huge.
So this card's neat. I think it might be a little bit overlooked, but it's so perfectly medium with upside that I think it is a very medium plus card. This is a solid B plus.
I think
this card might be better than that. This is actually one of the marquee cards in the set for me.
Oh,
definitely.
Yeah,
I think
the mana sink is insane.
Yeah, and the like line of text that everything else you control has hexproof is also like absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
Like if you're able to put like a sword of pro their deck on this, they just don't ever get to remove anything you have ever again.
Huh.
Yeah.
All right.
Like, I think you would play this even if they took away any one of the 3 abilities. Like, if it didn't have flying for whatever reason, it'd still be great. If it didn't have the middle piece of text, it would obviously be worse, but I think still playable in a lot of decks. And if it didn't have the bottom thing, I think it would still be quite good.
I agree.
But it has all 3?
But it has all 3, so it's insane.
Yeah.
And it's an angel with your Lyra.
I know, right?
All right.
All right, moving on. Let's go to blue. Our first blue card is the Artificer's Assistant. It's a blue bird. It's a 1/1 for 1, and it flies. And whenever you cast a historic spell, scry 1. Back to Alex.
Cheap.
It's a flying man.
Herb.
Cheap.
Are you okay?
I'm doing the King's Quest bird. I don't know if you played that game.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a 1/1 flyer for 1. It goes into flying man. You might get a scry off of one of your Moxes.
Or a Jite.
Or a GT.
Yeah.
Or a Bone Splitter.
Sweet.
It's fine.
War Gear.
All right, next up we have Blink of an Eye, which is exciting because it's basically a functional reprint of Into the Royal. So for 1 and a blue, you get an instant spell, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and you can kick it for 1 and a blue to draw a card. Liam.
Yeah. I'm not sure how many decks want to play 2 Into the Royal style effects, but I like this art a lot more, so I'm probably going to play this card instead. It's interesting. When I was looking at this card, I was having a bit of a hard time conceptualizing exactly what deck wants 2.
Into the Royals.
2 Into the Royal style effects, yeah. Like, it's entirely possible there are some in that.
Seinfeld slam dunk.
Yeah. Like, and it's possible that I just like haven't really thought about it because you don't actually have a whole lot of effects like this that there are multiple stuff. Like, this is kind of a weird one to have duplicates. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to see some play, and it's really nice as a budget alternative. Maybe if you're looking to fill up some spots in your deck, like just putting a bounce spell with upside into your blue deck is always going to be reasonable. So
It's like, well, can't afford Cryptic, but I can afford one of these.
Yep.
Graham.
Just for what it's worth, for anyone listening, this is exactly the same
Yeah.
as Into the Royal. Just it's not.
Functional reprint.
Yeah, but pardon me, Serge said basically functional reprint.
Oh, pardon me.
This is exactly
Literally a
It's
functional
really
reprint.
accurate.
Yeah.
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 In
Cool.
every way.
Next up, we have the Merfolk Trickster. This is a 2-mana 2/2 for blue. It's a Merfolk wizard. It has flash, and when it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. It loses all abilities. Jer.
This card's really interesting. I'm not entirely sure where it goes, but the ability is really cool, and I love flash creatures. So
I have a theory on what deck it could go into.
Merfolk?
I thought you were gonna say Mono Blue Devotion.
What? Oh, well, no, that's a better joke.
Oh, I see. That's what I'm excited
I
to play
think
this
it's
card.
obviously playable in Merfolk.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
Well,
think it's
no.
playable in both those decks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I played Mono Blue Devotion on Monday, and this is exactly the kind of effect that deck wants access to.
Sweet.
Sick.
Just like more blue things. Flash is great.
All right, next up we have Naru Meha, the Master Wizard. This is a 4-mana 3/3 legendary human wizard, also has flash. And when it ETBs, copy target instant or sorcery you control, important text. You may choose new targets for the copy, and just randomly, all your wizards get +1/+1. All other wizards get +1/+1. Alex.
This is another one of yours.
This one is interesting. I put this one on here because it has a lot of powerful abilities. I can't think off the top of my head a deck that slam dunk plays this. The other wizards you control part, like it's not Snapcaster. You can't get that much utility out of it. Situationally, it's not up there. But the fact that it has flash makes it very relevant. The fact you can get extra utility off of one of your spells might be very relevant to a deck that cares about that. And in sort of like the red-blue flash decks, a lot of your creatures are incidentally wizards, so you might be able to get some extra value out of that Anthem effect. So
I feel like this might be best copying spells you didn't pay any mana for.
like if you
paid a really,
It's
really
definitely
tiny
the
amount.
nut with Ancestral
yeah,
Vision.
Ancestral Vision, Treasure Cruise, Dig Through Time, because you're already paying like 1 or 2 mana for both of those. So if you're a blue deck and you've got access to 5 or 6 mana and it's their end step, you're like Ancestral, hold priority, Naru, copy Ancestral, draw 6 cards. Like that's the sort of world I'm picturing this in.
It's also kind of cool with Force of Will.
Yeah.
Cards like that. Like you pitch cast Force of Will, they fight back, then you cast this and you get to Force of Will again.
Heyo.
So that's the thing. I can imagine a lot of places where this would be very valuable. I don't know how many decks it's going to get into right off the bat.
It's cool though.
I think it's neat, and I wouldn't be surprised. Like I think this is Highlander playable, and we'll see how many decks pick it up. Next up, we have a reprint. Opt. Opt is a 1-mana blue spell. It's an instant, and it has some text. It says scry 1 and draw a card. Alex.
It's a reprint
This art's so good.
that is
Yeah.
playable in Highlander.
All right, moving on. We got the Tempest Djinn. Tempest Djinn is a 3-mana 0/4 for blue. It has flying, and it gets +1/+0 for each basic island you control. Liam.
Yeah, so talking about Mono Blue Devotion, this is one of those cards that, like, this set has a bunch of these kinds of cards where they're not going to be staples in a bunch of decks, but they're going to be really good to the decks they are good in, and this is the first one of those, I think. This is going to be insane in Mono Blue Devotion. It's going to make that deck even better. And then I also think this card's very good in Flying Men, and not a whole lot else. The triple blue makes it pretty prohibitive to cast in a lot of other decks, and in the control decks, you just probably have better threats than this, and you're going to be playing dual lands and that
It's
kind
a
of thing.
shame it only counts basic islands.
Yeah. Oh,
I
it'd
think
be
it's
nuts.
probably better
Yeah.
than it
Yeah.
only counts basic islands. I don't
Yeah,
want to
if-
die to this all the
If
time.
you could play this in Jeskai,
Oh,
you know what I mean? You're just
Yeah.
like, oh, that's just gross. Okay.
Ew.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty well balanced.
I've been asked a couple times about this card in Seinfeld on social media, so I'll chime in quickly. I don't think this card gets in. Not really looking for more just straight win conditions in that deck. Not really what we're all about.
Fair.
It does too much of a thing.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next card. Tetsuko Umezawa, Fugitive, is a 2-mana legendary human rogue. And you get a 1/3 out of that. It's 1 in a blue. Creatures you control with power or toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. Jer.
This card's really interesting. It's obviously very, very powerful. The only deck I can think of playing it in is like a prowess deck where you're like trying to combo them out. You like attack with your like 1-power prowess creatures like Monastery Swiftspear and Stormchaser Mage, and then just like fire off your flurry of spells after blockers.
Yeah, the deck. I think Ben built this in one.
Yeah,
was it?
Teamer Domain.
Yeah, it was like
prowess.
Teamer Domain Pump.
Well, and then
Yeah.
Nelson also played that deck on the stream
Yeah.
against you guys.
Crushed me with it. He like 18'd me out of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean it's like I think all the relevant creatures have this like meet this criteria.
You were talking about Mono Blue Devotion. All the all the elementals from Master of Waves are 2/1s.
They're
aren't they?
2/1s. That's
Yeah.
true. But that's a little niche. But actually, there are a bunch of 1 power and toughness creatures in Mono Blue Devotion.
Frostburn weird.
I was almost thinking of this card as
I was thinking Frostwalker.
as like another flying man, because this is a card that it's basically a 2-mana evasion creature because it also counts itself.
The base for Flying Men usually is you need at least as much power as mana you spend into it.
But it's toughness as well. So
I know, but I'm just saying you wouldn't pay
I see what you're
2
saying.
mana for a 1 power flyer.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, that's fair.
All right, and let's move on to our last blue spell, Unwind. Unwind is a 3-mana counterspell for 2 and a blue. Counter target non-creature spell. Untap up to 3 lands. Alex.
I thought they stopped printing free spells. This isn't Urza Block. This is, what's the other spell that's...
Rewind.
Rewind, which is like 1 mana more
And
for any
untap
spell.
4.
Yeah.
And it's another blue pip.
Yeah, like this is a sort of free counter spell.
High Tide?
I feel like High Tide could probably...
No, not quite.
Really?
I don't know.
It's a little weird in High Tide because you typically want things that do proactive stuff, so like countering your own spell on your turn to untap your lands.
I mean, I feel like some sort of flash deck would be kind of stoked about this. Like counter their thing and then play a 3-drop.
That's exactly why I put it on the list.
My biggest issue with this is that the decks that seem to want it most, like Flash decks and High Tide style decks, really want their counter spells to be able to hit creatures because that's often what they're weakest to. And so I found the ability to sort of add odds with themselves. I think it would be a lot better if it's a counter target creature spell, at least for me.
I actually disagree, but only in that I think that I'm the one who put this on the list, and the decks I sort of had in mind were like the Flash decks where you oftentimes, the problem you run into is finding a space to stop them from doing something and develop a threat. And this is really good at opening up a turn for you where they try and play a Planeswalker, you unwind it, then you play a Nimble Obstructionist, then you get to keep going. And while I agree with you that it's awkward that it doesn't counter creatures, I don't think that like many of the decks that are Flash decks are like mono blue. They often have a lot of colors in them, and that's actually like the reason for playing a bunch of colors is you need to have removal because planning to counter every creature just isn't a reasonable way to win. So I just think this card's really good because it has like a very dangerous set of text on it, which is untap lands, right? Like
Definitely.
Any card that has that text on it is going to pique my attention.
Hey, it's better than foil.
All right, let's move on to our next color, black. Our first black card we're going to talk about today is Cast Down. Cast Down is a 2-mana instant for 1 and a black. Destroy target non-legendary creature. Who's up? Is it?
I think technically it's me.
Yeah.
Yeah, this card is interesting. There are a lot of legendaries in Highlander, and so this is pretty conditional, actually, way more conditional than it might look. And so I think you're usually going to look to play some other removal spell instead of this, but if you're going pretty deep on removal, this is like, I don't know where to put it on the list yet. We ranked a bunch of them.
We've got Doomblade, Go for the Throat, and Cast Down. All cost the same thing, all do similar things, and it's just like wondering which one actually has the most amount of valid threats.
Yeah, I mean, I might even play Ultimate Price before I played Cast Down. I'm not sure.
I think I'd play Cast Down over Ultimate Price.
I
It's
think
close.
I would too.
Because like a lot of people aren't playing Go for the Throat because of the prevalence of Platinum
Plats,
Imperium.
yeah.
And if you're looking for a 2-mana spell that kills a lot of stuff, maybe?
It's awkward, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to look at like what the metagame's like. Like for instance, Cast Down is like actively abhorrent against Jeskai.
Yep.
So many of their threats are legendary, and even against Blue Moon, I mean, it doesn't kill Baral, it doesn't kill Vendilion Click, but it does kill Platinum Imperium, which is good. It's a conditional removal
Right?
spell.
Isn't
So
it,
you
isn't
just
it
gotta
interesting?
like.
I just wanted this discussion.
Yeah, for sure. I
It's
think
definitely a playable card.
Yeah, it's definitely playable if you open one and you have sort of a Highlander box like Alex does. Put it in the Highlander box, you're going to find an occasion where you want to play it. But is it a slam dunk? No, but it's good. I think it's a
I
reasonable
think
card.
Mono Black is pretty stoked to just be like, give me more!
Yeah. Having for Mono Black especially having
More Doomblades.
more like things that they can play while developing something is pretty good, I think.
All right, next up we have Dark Bargain. Dark Bargain is a 4-mana instant. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put 2 of them into your hand, the other 2 into the graveyard. Take 2 damage. Jer.
I'm not sure what deck really wants this.
We can go with Alex.
Yeah.
Alex, you want to talk about this inclusion?
I'm stoked about black draw spells that
Yeah.
also bin cards. This being an instant, I think, is a big deal for me. I'm not 100% sure what deck wants to be playing this, but it's not often that black gets to draw spells at instant speed. They take damage and draw cards fairly efficiently, but it's almost always sorcery speed. And also just being able to chuck something, I think, would be kind of relevant.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's
a sorcery. Bitter Revelation's a 4-mana sorcery that does something similar. That's
a little
neat.
bit like that.
All right.
You know, it fuels your bin. It draws you cards, and you can do it end of their turn.
So we'll throw back to Jer here. Next up, we have the Demon Lord Belzenlock. Is a 6-mana, 6/6 legendary Elder Demon. It has Flying and Trample, and here's a lot of words. Stay with me. When it ETBs, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card. Then put that card into your hand. If the card's CMC is 4 or greater, do that again. At the end of doing this over and over and over, take 1 damage for every card you put into your hand. Jer.
I think this card's really, really good. I think it is potentially another really good sort of value reanimator target alongside Grave Titan, something that ETBs and does something immediately. And is also like castable, like in the games where you're playing a more grindy matchup, you can conceivably just cast it.
Like, I mean,
not unreasonably.
Your floor for this is like
Get 1 card.
Get a 6/6 Flying Trample, draw a 5-drop or 4 or plus.
Just get a card.
Draw a card.
Like
Other way around, right? If
Other
it's
way
a cheap
around.
card, you don't draw anymore, but if it's expensive, you keep drawing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. So draw like a 3-drop.
It's also really, I think, really potentially playable in black midrange decks. It's a really good card at ending the game. Like 6/6 Flying Trample is not getting beaten by basically anything in combat.
I will say,
So
I can't wait to see the first person to like
Die
dome
their
themselves to
Belzenlock.
this. Just out of like raw bad luck, they just like chain the whole way through their deck.
I guess that is a risk in reanimators. You
Yeah.
potentially just like flip like Unburial Rites and like a bunch of fatties and just like
5 in a row.
10 yourself.
If you're low, that's pretty funny.
It's a very exciting card.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Next up, we have Divest. This is a 1-mana sorcery for a single black. Target player reveals their hand. You get to choose an artifact or creature, and they discard it. Liam. Because we did some.
Yeah. This is a playable discard spell. How playable, we'll see. But 1-mana discard spells are at a premium. And like we have sort of the holy trinity of discard spells, right? Duress, Thoughtseize, Inquisition, and Kozilek. And then there's like Distress, right? That's the blackmail. What's the other one? Despise.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of a question of where this one fits in that hierarchy. Creature or artifact is pretty good. And so I think this one might be 4th if you're trying to play more
I think
discard
it is
spells
4th.
because it has utility in both types of matchups. Most of the combo decks you're going to play against will typically have artifacts generally at right now at least, and you can hit creatures in the more fair matchups.
Almost everybody's playing creatures. Well, not almost everybody, but
yeah,
it is a creature or it is a card type that sees play.
yeah, like this is not likely to whiff often, and you're going to be able to construct your deck in a way that this hits stuff that you care about. Black has a hard time dealing with artifacts too, so just having another discard spell that hits those is nice.
Next up, we have Dread Shade. Dread Shade is a 3-mana shade. It's a 3/3 for black. And for a single black, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Jer.
I think this basically only sees play in black midrange decks, maybe at the top end of a black aggro deck, but I think it's likely a little too mana intensive for that. But I think in black midrange decks, it's pretty exciting. You can create board states where they basically have to block this or potentially just get 10'd every turn. And that makes it really hard to trade with this in combat as well. So I think this card's pretty exciting. It's like, can also be potentially very invulnerable to red removal because of its ability.
Yeah.
So
Dodge the bolt.
I'm excited for Dark Ritual to turn into Lightning Bolt.
All right. Next up, we have Final Parting. Final Parting is a 5-mana sorcery for 3 black. Search your library for 2 cards, put 1 into your hand and the other into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. Alex.
This is a really interesting tutor. It's a 1-card setup for Reanimator, for example, so you can bin a fatty and get a Reanimate spell just in one package. You're just like, cock the hammer on that. I feel like other people are going to find some sort of like weirder utility for this than I can because my imagination only stretches so far as combos concerned.
All right.
Oh no.
You cast this spell.
Oh, dear.
You put Enter the Infinite in your graveyard and Mizzix's Mastery in your hand. Then on your next turn, you draw your deck and kill them with Lightning Storm. That's the first thing I want to do with this card. I'm so excited about this card.
That's actually pretty cool.
I'm unbelievably excited about this card.
Okay.
That's the one thing I want to do with this card. The other thing is this is the best Tin Fins card they've printed since Children of Corliss.
Yep.
I'm not
You
that
just
might
get Children into your hand.
other than
Gristlebrand into the bin.
Gristlebrand, or reanimation spell into your hand, Gristlebrand in the bin. 5 mana's a lot, but I'm really excited about this card.
All right. Next up, we have the Knight of Malice. Knight of Malice is the opposite of the Knight of Grace that we talked about early. It's a 2-mana 2/2 human knight for 1 and a black. It has first strike, hexproof from white, and gets +1/+0 as long as you control a white permanent. As long as any player controls a white permanent. Liam.
Play it in your Grey Weenie decks. It's
I was
great.
gonna say, just take the same thing I said about the other card, but put it in minor key.
But
All right. Next up, we have Lich's Mastery. This is a 6-mana legendary enchantment for 3 black. Listen to all these words. Hexproof. You can't lose the game.
I like
Whenever
that.
you gain life, draw that many cards. Whenever you lose life, for each 1 life you lost, exile a permanent you control or a card from your hand or graveyard. When this leaves play, you lose. Jer.
So this card looks really wonky. It has a lot of words.
Yep.
But I think a lot of the words are enough to make it good. So the first one is hexproof. You can't just have this get blown up and you lose automatically. The other one that's huge is you can exile cards from your graveyard as a resource when you lose life, and cards from your hand. So I think if you play this in a black midrange deck alongside white or green, which are 2 colors that are really good at gaining life, you can potentially abuse the crap out of this card, and I think it'll actually just blow some people away how powerful this card can be.
Well, I mean, it sort of makes you immortal.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, I like it. All right, and our last black card we're going to talk about today is Phyrexian Scriptures. It's another saga. It is a 4-mana saga, which is an enchantment for 2 black. The first chapter. Put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. That creature becomes an artifact in addition to its other types. 2, destroy all Narn artifact creatures. And 3, exile all cards from all opponents' graveyards. You want to talk about this one, or should we throw it to
This one
Jared?
is so cool.
Yeah, you like it?
I think it's really cool. I mean, from a sort of art and flavor perspective, I think it's rad. It's also good. You mark one of your critters to be bigger. The next turn, it blows up everything except them, and then it makes them stay dead. You know, the third part of the saga is just and another thing. You know, you flush the toilet on your opponent. So, pick your favorite homie, kill everybody who's not your favorite homie, send them to an out-of-state landfill.
Into the Shadow Zone. All right, let's move on to red. Our first red card we're going to talk about today is Champion of the Flame. This is a 2-mana 1/1. For 1 and a red, it has Trample, and Champion of the Flame gets +2/+2 for each aura and equipment attached to it. Liam.
Yeah, much like the uncommon white knight we talked about that had all those keywords, this card probably goes into a similar deck, or that's the theory, right? Where you have a bunch of auras and equipment. Yes, sorry, I didn't want to mispronounce it. Danitha. Hi, it's my turn. Caption. I hosted once, and now all the pronunciation's gone to me. This is Space Jam. God damn it. So Champion of the Flame is going to go into some kind of Boros equipment deck, and I don't think you play it anywhere else, but in that, I think it's reasonable.
I mean, they've been printing effects like this for a while. Sooner or later, we're going to get a density that maybe makes the deck work.
All right, next up, we have Gitu Lava Runner. 1 red for a human wizard, 1/2. As long as there are 2 or more instant or sorceries in your graveyard, it gets +1/+0 and haste. Jer.
I think I'm going to ship this one over to you.
Yeah, I think this card might be fine. I think mono red likes 1-mana 2/2s that have haste. Yep. So I think if you're on turn 3 or turn 4 and you draw this, you're fine. And even on its worst case scenario, it might be okay.
Let me tell you, if you're saving up for a Goblin Guide, this will do you for the time being.
That's what I think. I think it's a fine budget include for a red deck, and it might even be beyond a red, a budget include. This might just be a fine card for the RDW players. Yeah. Let's throw to the next one then. The Goblin Chain Whirler. This is a red 3/3 Goblin Warrior with first strike, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. Jer.
This card is really good in a couple decks. It's obviously really, really good in Goblins, just like being able to tutor for this effect is nuts. And I think red decks in general traditionally struggle with the green decks a fair amount. The good green deck draws tend to match up very well against the red deck draws. And so having just an out so that you can jam on turn 3 or maybe turn 2 with the Mox or something and just blow up their mana dorks, which are how they really get ahead of you, is a really big deal. And the first strike is also really nice against another tough matchup, which is white decks that just try to sit behind a mountain of first striking creatures.
Totally.
See how you like it.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Goblin War Chief. Goblin War Chief is a 3-mana 2/2 for 1 red. It's a goblin and a warrior. And goblin spells you cast are 1 less. Goblin spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And goblins you control have haste. Alex.
It's a reprint.
Next up, we have the Siege King Commander. 5-mana 2/2 goblin for 3 red. When it enters the battlefield, you also get 3 1/1 red goblins. And for 1 in red, sack any goblin, including itself. And Siege King Commander will deal 2 damage to any target.
Reprint
Liam.
is it?
Let's talk about the Skirk Prospector. 1 mana red goblin. It's a 1/1. Sack a goblin, add a red. Jer.
Is it reprint?
Moving on. We have Squee the Immortal. Squee is a 3-mana 2/1 for 1 red legendary goblin. You may cast it from your graveyard or from exile. Alex?
Not a reprint.
And that's our show.
I love this card.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool. It's really cute. I would maybe try this in Aristocrats, but as I'm sure Jer is like getting excited about, it's probably best in Food Chain combo.
Oh.
Because it's a 3rd copy of a creature that can be food chained
And it's
forever.
recruiterable by
on
both
both
recruiters,
sides.
which is such a huge deal for that
I
deck.
heard that in stereo.
It's also just such a great flavor slam dunk.
Yeah.
You know, this goblin that nobody can get rid of, even if they really want to.
Yeah.
This card's also secretly a nightmare for control decks to beat. Like, if you don't have a clock as a control deck and your red opponent or your opponent with this card in their deck just like is casting a 2/1 for 3 every turn, like eventually it's gonna stick and kill you.
Just like, wow, I sure am wasting all my counter spells.
And removal.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Valduk, Keeper of the Flame. Our friend Valley is a 3/2 for 3, 2 in red. It's a humanist shaman. At the beginning of combat on your turn, for each aura and equipment attached to Valduk, create a 3/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Exile at the beginning of the next end step. Who's up? Is
Me.
it Liam?
It's me.
Liam.
This is another card for the Boros equipment deck, probably, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I have to say about this card. I don't think, like, maybe Mono Red Death and Taxes might play this card as well, actually, but probably not.
All right.
I want to play Godo before I play this card.
Oh, yeah.
And our last red card that we're going to talk about today, and there are some notable exceptions. We have a follow-up episode. Our last red card is Verax Bladewing. This is a 4-mana 4/4 legendary Dagron for 2 red. It has Kicker 3, it has Flying, and if it was kicked, you get a second 4/4 dragon. Jer.
This card is great in big red. I also think you play it in mono red Death and Taxes just because it's a 4/4 flyer with upside. It's great in those decks. Might get into some other decks just because it's like super efficient. 4/4 for 4 flyers are like pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super kind of plain effect, but it's really strong.
Yeah. All right, let's move to green. Our first green card we're going to talk about today is Broken Bond. This is a 2-mana sorcery for 1 and a green. Destroy, I said sorcery, yeah. Destroy target artifact or enchantment, and you may play a land card from your hand. Alex.
Well, did you want to ramp and blow up stuff?
I sure do.
Well, I got a Broken Bond for you.
Holy moly.
Yeah, I feel like this is surely, you put it on the list, didn't you?
No, this is the Liam card.
Oh. Yeah, anything I'm missing on this one, or is it just...
No, like, it's just like a very reasonable card. Like, putting an extra land into play attached to a very reasonable effect seems reasonable.
Now, do you need an artifact or an enchantment to target?
Yes, you need a target for it.
That's a shame.
So
But-
what you do is you destroy your own Ugin's Nexus, then put a...
All right,
God
moving
damn,
on.
look at this Nexus.
Next up, we have Lana War Elves. It's a 1 green elf. It's green, it's a 1/1, and it adds green.
And it's a druid.
And it's a druid.
Yeah.
Relevant creature type.
Liam, you want to talk about this card?
Yes, it's good.
Awesome. Moving on, we have Marwan the Nurturer. This is a 3-mana 1/1 legendary elf druid for 2 and a green. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Marwan, and tap, add an amount of green equal to her power. Jer.
Oh boy, do I want to play this in Paradox Engine Druid Tribal.
Oh, no. You just used a lot of words there. Paradox Engine Druid Tribal.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Is there a combo I'm missing, or is it just value?
Just, I mean, there's
boundless amounts of mana.
It's one of those decks where there's like 18 combos, but they're all 5 cards, and just one of them's gonna sort of fall
We'll
itself
get there eventually.
into play.
Sweet, cool. All right, let's move on to Saproline Migration. This is a 2-mana sorcery. Create 2 Saprolines, or kicker 4. If it was, you get 4 tokens. Alex?
It's dragon fodder, but for saprolings, and also upside.
All right, next up we have the Steel Leaf Champion. Steel Leaf Champion is a green elf knight 5/4, so a 3-mana 5/4. Also, it has more text. It can't be blocked by creatures of power 2 or less. Liam?
Yeah, so WotC, this is what I've heard. I don't know whether it's 100% sure, but they kind of want to move away from Trample as an evergreen mechanic because it's confusing to new players. And so this is the green thing they're doing instead. They're making big green creatures not be blockable by small creatures. Holy God, is it good on this card! Yeah, casting this on turn 2 off of the aforementioned Lana War elves and/or the other 3 elves that make green in our format. I mean, this is basically going to only be playable in like maybe like a green aggro deck that's lightly splashing red or just mono green. But like this card's really good. It is worth noting that the 4 toughness is actually vulnerable to some of the more popular red removal, Flame Slash and Mizium Mortars. But that's you can't have that in your mind when you're playing this card.
No.
It's pretty good. It's just I want to caution people into thinking that this card is invincible.
Dies to removal?
No. It dies to more removal than you think it does. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, sure.
I just want to make sure people don't think that this is invulnerable because it's not. It's not Leatherback Bailoff, but it's probably still better than it.
I'm just gonna say that I've been hoarding a Groundbreaker for the deck that this guy's gonna go into.
Yeah, it seems good.
Oh, I like that. All right, that was the Steel Leaf Champion. Moving on, we have Sylvan Awakening. This is a 3-mana sorcery. Until your next turn, all lands you control become 2/2 elemental creatures with reach, indestructible, and haste. They're also still lands. Jer.
This is really exciting. You can potentially kill people with this in a lands deck. The most important text is indestructible.
Yeah.
Because then you don't get blown out unless they have Settled the Wreckage, in which case, good for them.
But at least you get all your basics that you have in your 5-color lands deck.
Yeah.
That's not
Toxic
happening.
Deluge.
Delugi. That's always awkward.
If they somehow instant speed the Toxic Deluge,
It's until your next turn.
It's until your next turn?
They have a
Ruh-roh.
turn.
Yeah, they
Okay.
can get. That's the
Never
one
mind.
downside to this is you
I
are
should have read
vulnerable
the
to
card.
sorcery speed on the next turn. But whatever.
This also goes infinite with Relentless Assault, which might be a thing that people might want to try, like in a green-red ramp deck.
Oh, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have Territorial Allosaurus. This is a 4-mana 5/5 for 2 green. Has kicker for 3, so it's 2 and a green. When it ETBs, if it was kicked, it fights another creature. Alex.
Serge, you put this one on the list.
I did. I think it's just fine. I think a 4-mana 5/5 in a mid-range deck is great. If you have a little bit more mana, it's also a removal spell. So early game, if you ramp this out on turn 3, you're in a great position. Or late game, it comes into play and is also a removal spell. I think it's just solid. It just does what you need it to for its power, toughness, and cost, and it just has upside the later the game goes.
Yeah. Great analysis.
Speaking of which,
Thank you. And our last card we have is the Untamed Kibou, which is a smaller version of the same card. 2-mana 2/2 Kibou for 1 and a green, kicker 3, has Vigilance and Trample. I missed that the first time. Holy moly. If it was kicked, it enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. Alex.
they've been doing a lot of work on grizzly bears, and this is the logical solution.
I think we've created a monster.
I think this card is just sweet. It's got, a bunch of keywords. You like it early, you like it late. It's like, ordinarily, the cards with kicker that come out bigger, you pay more mana than power that you get. This one is the same amount of mana for the same amount of power. So it's a 2-mana 2/2 with Vigilance and Trample, or a 5-mana 5/5 with the same abilities.
That's very cool.
I think if you're playing this card, you're playing it as the 5-mana 5/5, and the upside is that you can play it for 2.
I agree.
I think that's the way you want to think about it. You want to think about it as like, I'm going to put this 5/5 Vigilance Trampler in my deck. But if the game necessitates it, I can play it for 2 mana as well.
Is this now the green equivalent of Shriekmaw?
It doesn't have flash, but yeah, maybe.
Shriekmaw doesn't have flash.
But you can.
Sure, but it doesn't actually kill anything is all I'm saying.
Yeah, but I like that. I like that. Just
you're
to
right.
sort of
Yeah,
like,
that's a reasonable.
Okay.
like the flavor equivalent.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our gold cards, and this is where my pronunciation is going to go into the tank, so apologies. Let's start off with Adeliz, the Cinderwind. This is a 3-mana 2/2 human wizard for 1 blue-red. Flying and haste, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, wizards you control get +1/+1, sort of like a super prowess. Liam.
Yeah, and that's exactly why this is on the list. This is a 3-mana 2/2 with flying and haste that has prowess that might also pump other things you control.
Which might also have prowess.
Correct, yeah. So this has a lot of upside. I'm not certain it's going to be playable, but I think I would like to try it, and I might even try kind of like stilting my creature base to have more creatures to try and increase the potentness of this card.
All right, next
Potency, sorry.
That's all good. We have Ariel, Knight of Windgrace. This is a 4-mana 4/4 with a lot of other abilities. So it's a legendary human knight for 2 white-black, has vigilance, and 3 mana, so 2 and a white, tap, create a 2/2 white knight with vigilance, or black and tap X untap knights you control, destroy target creature with power X or less. Jer.
So I think this is just a reasonable mid-range card on any deck that can cast it, but I think it will especially shine in green decks where you can accelerate it out. I think it has the capability to just take over a game by itself. It is a little slow and vulnerable to removal, but many cards are, and I think the upside is certainly there with this card.
The fact that it gets to attack and use its abilities is really nice.
Exactly,
That's
yeah.
really
The vigilance is really the key, the glue holding her together.
Next up, we have Joyra, the Weatherlight Captain. Joyra is a 4-mana human artificer 3/3 for 2 blue-red. Whenever you cast a historic spell, draw a card. Alex.
Academy decks love her.
Yeah? All right.
I'm just curious briefly, how relevant do you think spells that care about historic are going to pop up in Highlander? Because it's mostly artifacts.
Mostly-
And maybe legendaries?
Legendaries, too, to a certain extent.
I think basically historic and Highlander mostly means artifact and planeswalker.
Yeah.
It's like mostly what it means.
What deck is Joyra going into is what I'm curious about. I mean, it's got a good body. I just can't think of a home off the top of my head.
I think she could be in like a Grixis artifacty mid-range deck. I think she can be in like a lower, more aggressive like affinity style deck with draw 7s, where you're going to be able to cast her fairly easily. That deck's really good at getting
put her in
mana.
Workshop Weedy.
Yeah, then you
Holy moly!
you play her, then you draw 7, then you just like cantrip your entire hand out.
I think this card's also probably playable in a Paradox Engine combo deck.
Yeah, you play it as a draw engine. Do
yeah,
you deck yourself?
No.
You probably will.
Yeah.
I mean, you could. Like, don't get me wrong. You
Because
definitely
it's not
could.
a May. You have to draw.
But,
You'll
like,
win first.
Surely you would. I mean, I don't want to make any guarantees, but surely you'd win first.
All right.
The one other thing about playing red is it would let you play Storm the Vaults from Rivals of Ixalan, which is not yet found at home, but maybe can if you're now putting 2 cards in your deck that are powerful.
Well,
All right, let's move on to Muldrotha, the Gravetide. 6-mana, 6/6 legendary elemental avatar for 3 bug. During each of your turns, so specifically on your turn, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. Alex.
you know what's a really good card?
What?
Yawgmoth's Will.
Yeah.
But you only get to do it for 1 turn. What if you could sort of almost do that every turn?
Yeah.
It's not actually that comparable to Yawgmoth's Will, but this is like a really powerful effect in a deck that is looking to mill itself, and it's in the perfect colors to do so. It's also a 6/6. So, like, your floor is beat you to death with this big idiot, and then play all my fetches from the graveyard, and also get a creature back, and maybe an artifact, or an enchantment.
It doesn't exile the things when you get them back. So I'm trying to figure out how we can combo kill people.
That's the thing. I don't think it's a combo card. I got a lot of tweets about this card when it came out. It's not Crucible 2 because there's a restriction of one per turn. What it is, it's a value card.
Yeah.
It's a value engine card. It'll do really well in, I think, like fair Reanimator shells. Because you can have a big dork in your bin. You could cast Necromancy from your graveyard with Moldotha to bring back another like
nice.
mid-range card.
Can you cast Shriekmaw for its evoke cost with this?
You could just cast Shriekmaw, but not for its evoke cost. Wait.
Why not?
It may play
It's an alternate cost. If evoke doesn't say from your hand, you could. I don't know the rules text on
Yeah,
evoke
this
cost.
is
We have to
tough.
look that up.
We'd have to look this up. Don't take this as either confirmed or denied. We'll have to look this up. This is the awkward part about judge calls. We don't have a chance to look it up. Maybe.
Like, you could cast morphs.
Yeah. Also, it's if you wanted a deck that's going to cast Executioner's Capsule every turn.
Also,
Yeah.
does Magus of the Will exile itself?
I don't know.
Because if you wanted to Yawgmoth's Will every turn,
And like actually,
yo dog.
Anger.
All right. We talked a lot about this card. This card's really neat. Definitely play it. Next up, we have Raf Caption, the ship's mage. Raffi
Oh, this is the blue-white fly.
is
flying
a
one. Okay.
4-mana 3/3 legendary human wizard for 2 white-blue, has flash, flying, and you may cast historic spells as though they had flash. Liam.
Yeah, I'm gonna put this into my flash decks probably. The 3/3 flyer is a really nice power and toughness line, and the historic spells aspect is not going to come up that often, since all the cards in your deck are going to have flash anyway in that
Yeah.
case.
I mean-
but there definitely are some decks, like maybe blue-white control plays this card, and then you get to
Flash
flash Jace the Mind Sculptor.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, do you get to, with this deck, say, end of your turn Jite?
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe I usually play Ancestral Recall because that card's broken. But yeah, I think probably blue-white control getting to like flash in Planeswalkers on your end step is maybe the most abusive thing you could be doing with this
Yeah.
card.
It's pretty scary.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we
I
have.
can just interject
yes, please.
very briefly. Magus of the Will does exile itself,
Bummer.
but from the comprehensive rules on Evoke, it is a static ability that functions in any zone from which the card with Evoke can be cast.
You
All
can
right.
evoke Shriek
So you
Maw every
can
turn.
evoke from the graveyard with Muldrotha.
Oh,
How you doing there?
I got a deck to brew.
Yeah, right. I've wanted to make. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Next up, we have Shana, Sisei's Legacy. This is a 2-mana 0/0
crap,
for a
that's
green and
great.
white legendary human warrior. It has hexproof. Why is it worded that
It doesn't
way?
have
It doesn't have
hexproof.
hexproof.
Can't
You can
be the
target it with spells.
Can't be the target of abilities. Oh, I didn't read that right. So Shana can't be the target of abilities your opponents control, but can be the target of spells, and it gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. Jer.
I actually thought this was the other way around for a while. Actually,
Okay.
until I read it just now.
Womp womp.
So it's definitely worse than I thought it was. Like, having hexproof from abilities is worse than hexproof from spells. It's better than no hexproof at all. And it is maybe the cheapest. Just like voice... What's...
Voice of Resurgence?
No, there's a card that's just power and toughness equal to the
Yeah, so where's our other
Scion
card?
of something.
Yeah, it costs 1 green.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think it's the cheapest one of those ever printed, and it's easier to cast, which is great. So I could see playing this in like a go wide deck.
Scion of the Wild.
That's the
yeah.
one.
Common Scion of the
Yeah,
Wild.
it started as a
Four
rare
really rare.
Ravnica block.
Yeah.
How
I
did the
know.
mighty have fallen?
Right. All
Yeah.
right.
So I think Shana's playable. But
Cool. Next up, we have Slimefoot, the Stowaway, which nobody wanted to talk about but me, so I'll take this one right here.
Please explain this card
Enlighten
to
us,
us.
Serge.
3-mana 3/2 for 1 black.
2/3.
3-mana 2/3 for 1 black-green. Whenever a Saproling you control dies, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain a life. And for 4 mana, create a Saproling. I think it's just fine. Maybe it's my nostalgia talking. The first ever deck I made in Highlander was an Abzan token Saproling deck, basically a redesign of the Gavu of the Spores, Gave of the Spores commander deck.
Agave? No, that's definitely not it.
Yeah, and I think it's just fine. There's a lot of ways to make Saprolings. It's an okay body, like a 2/3 for 3, and it's a mana sink in the late game. And I think it's just fine. It has a lot of text. It's sort of like a synergy card. It goes in the middle somewhere. Not just me.
It's like a blood artist, but only for saprolings.
You know, Graham, that's a great analysis from someone who's played 0 games with this format.
Wow.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And I think that makes it a little thin, but I'm also excited to have someone cast this, totally underestimate it, and then die.
Yeah.
I could totally see that happening as well.
This card is going to win games. You're going to sit there and you're going to be like, I'm just going to keep attacking. And then like every turn, they're going to be like 4 mana, make a sapperling, block your creature as their board slowly grows. And you're like, I can't.
In
Am
fairness,
I losing to Slimefoot?
In fairness, in this set too, they've printed a couple more like just make sapperling cards, and there are a bunch of them now. So maybe you can play this in a deck with like Sprout Swarm and like really go infinite.
All right, I'm in if you like play this with Sprout Swarm and then Killing Wave.
Yeah, well, and then you can Court of Calling for this, then Killing Wave.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
All right, never mind, Serge.
Let's
This
move on.
card's great.
All right, it's a combo
I'm sorry
card.
we ever dealt
I'm
with
in.
it.
So one other card we're going to talk about that's probably going to fall on me is Tatyova, the Benthic Druid. 5 mana, 3/3 legendary Merfolk Druid for 3 and a green and a blue. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, these are the sweetest words ever printed in Magic. You gain a life and you draw a card.
That seems
And
good.
notably, it's not even when you play a land; it's land enters. So your fetch lands
land
get you
twice. All your ramp spells, if you put something into play, you cast your Primeval Titan, you actually gain 2 life and draw 2 cards.
Serge.
Bruh.
What? How does Fast Bond work?
Well. So
Yes.
So some things to note about this card. It does not go infinite because you will deck yourself. This is not a mid-range card. This is not a card that you will put in a lot of things. This is a card that you will build around. Not every fast bond deck is going to want this either. However, in the deck that wants to go big with Horn of Greed and find a combo piece, this is going to be an amazing sort of engine enabler.
It's also really just good with fast bond. Like it lets you like go ham.
Yeah. If you've ever wanted to go ham, Tatyova will
Help
ham
you
you.
go ham.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. It's a Planeswalker. 5 mana Planeswalker for 3 white blue, comes into play with 4 loyalty. +1, draw a card. At the beginning of your end step, untap 2 lands. -3, put target non-land permanent into its owner's library, 3rd from the top. -8, you get an emblem. Whenever you draw a card, exile target permanent an opponent controls. Alex.
Azorius control players love him.
That sounds about right.
Like that sounds about right. This does. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jer, but this does everything you want to do in like blue-white control.
Oh yeah, it's great in that deck.
Like untapping the 2 lands.
Necessary.
What blue spells can you cast for 2 mana?
No.
Are they counter spells?
Maybe.
Counter spells, removal spells, draw spells. You got them all.
Yeah.
I think this card is kind of in the Dovinbane, like,
I think it's better.
category. Really? It costs 5 mana. That's my concern. It's 5
But
mana.
but the problem is
Costs
it like
it doesn't
3.
actually.
net costs you 3.
But you have to tap 5 lands before you can, or get 5 mana before you can put it into play, and you have to be in a board state where you can afford to tick it up.
It does
doesn't protect itself very well.
itself with the -3. That's the one criteria. If they have a little bit of a board, it can come into play and have an immediate board
It's
impact.
also being 5 mana isn't that big of a deal because like the blue-white control decks, it's a great follow-up to Wrath on 4, which is a nice spot to
Like
be.
Wrath on 4, this guy with counter magic up seems back-breaking.
I don't think I agree, because if you Wrath on floor, then that means their 4th turn or 5th turn, whatever it is spent redeveloping, and casting this into a board they've just redeveloped like is so contextual based on how good their reload has been. Like if their reload's bad, then this card's a really good follow-up because you can either put the one thing they put, like they put it back into play back on top.
It's medium. This is a medium card. I think it'll see play. We don't have enough time to get like really deep on this card. If it's okay to say that it might see play, it's solid, but it's not a windmill slam.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like playable. I just don't think it's like better than most of the other ones that we play.
Fair.
It's worse than Jace.
Well, yeah. All right, let's move on to artifacts. Our first artifact that we're going to talk about today is the Dampening Sphere. Dampening Sphere is a 2-mana artifact. It has a bunch of words I'm going to try and go off of from memory. 1, it says something about for every additional spell you cast, it's going to get more expensive. So the first one is free. It gets progressively more expensive after that. What other words does it have on it?
Lands, if a land would tap for more than 1 mana, it only taps for a generic mana.
There we
instead.
go.
Damping sphere.
Yeah, not dampening.
Oh, Damping Sphere. I'm sorry, Graham. I spelt it wrong, and when he went to look
You're
it up, he
thinking
couldn't
of
find
dampening matrix.
it. Yeah. Who's up? Alex.
I love the flavor text on this. A Thran relic. It has spent 10,000 years doing absolutely nothing.
It's very
Shout
Null
out to your
Rod-esque.
boy Nullrod.
It's a hate rock. I'm like Storm players hate it. The shutting off extra mana, the ones that I think of are
Academy Cradle.
Academy Cradle, Sol Lands, even like the other one that goes for devotion.
Nykthos.
Oh,
Nykthos,
Nykthos, yeah.
Cabal Coffers.
I think that part will get people more
Lake
than
of
they
the
think.
Dead.
Lake of the Dead, yeah, exactly.
The one thing I could see with this card is that there might be some slightly awkward friendly fire with it. Like some of the decks that are going to play this are going to be big mana decks themselves.
See, I think of it the other way. I find this card, I'd play this card over Sphere of Resistance. Because I've gotten by my own Sphere of Resistance before, where you're on 6 mana, you want a Wildfire, but you can't actually pay that extra tax. If you're the big mana deck and you want to play one threat per turn, this doesn't harm you. It's not symmetrical in this effect. This is fairly laser targeted against the decks that want to do multiple spells in one turn.
But it still hits you if you have like Ancient Tomb, Crystal Vein, City of Traders, which are like pretty good cards in that deck, right?
True, but it doesn't hose your mana rocks.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's pretty hot.
Yeah. All right, moving on to mana rocks, we got the Gilded Lotus. 5 mana rock, tap, add 3 of any one color to your mana pool. I'm totally lost. Is it Liam now? Liam!
It's me. This adds 3 mana of any color. That's very good when you get to untap it every time you get to cast a spell.
It's a reprint.
It's also a reprint, yeah. So like Academy decks, Paradox Engine decks, you don't really see this being played in fair decks in Highlander, maybe in some big red decks or
Big
decks.
Red is not a fair deck.
No.
No. Well, yeah. But maybe in some big decks. But yeah, that's where you see this card get played. The new
All right.
art's sweet.
Joyra's Familiar. Did I pronounce that right? I think so. 4 mana, 2/2 artifact bird, flying, and historic spells you cast cost 1 less. Jer.
This is like a combo card for Paradox decks mostly, I think. Some other decks may want it, like if you're going ham on the Future Sight top combo or something, but mostly a Paradox Engine combo card, I think.
I really regret reading the flavor text.
You could say it's my pet project. All right, next up, we have another reprint, the Juggernaut. 4 mana, 5/3 artifact creature, must attack each turn if able and can't be blocked by walls. I put this on the list. I love this card. If you are playing BattleBots, it's the worst of the possible Juggernauts, but it's still solid. It's best friends with Mishra's Workshop.
Still pods into Kiki Jiki just fine.
Yeah. Next up, we have Carne, Scion of Urza. Is a 4 mana planeswalker, enters play with 5 loyalty. +1, reveal the top 2 cards of your library. An opponent chooses one. Put the chosen card into your hand and exile the other one with a silver counter on it. -1, put a card you own with a silver counter on it from exile into your hand. -2, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token. With this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. Alex.
Boy, did people lose their mind when they printed this. They're like, oh my god, it's so broken. It's gonna ruin standard. But I mean, they do that for everything. I think this card is good. It's cool. You can put it in any deck. I don't think you'll want to. But the plus is sort of like get a not as great draw. The minus is like sort of get a slightly better draw. And it just makes dudes, it defends itself. It will eventually establish a board that you could kill your opponent with. It's quite cheap and easy to cast.
Yeah, the +1 and -1 are really interesting, I think.
They're quite
because
weird.
there are like 3 scenarios. You exile 2 good cards, in which case the +1 is great because you're still getting a good card, and then you can -1 later to get your other good card. You get a good card and a bad card, in which case you get the bad card now and the good card later, and you exile 2 bad cards and then you just get to plus again after.
Yeah.
So I think those 2 parts of it
they're so
are really,
cute.
really good.
They're like little space brains.
All right, next up we have Traxos, Scourge of the Kruge. This is a 4 mana 7/7 legendary artifact creature. It has trample, and it enters the battlefield tapped and doesn't untap. However, whenever you cast a historic spell, untap it. Liam.
You were talking about how Juggernaut is the worst of the Juggernauts.
Yeah.
Is this now the best of the Juggernauts?
I think this might be the best Juggernaut.
Yeah, this card's massive. Absolutely in awe of the size of this thing.
Absolute unit.
Yeah, like this is just going to attack for a lot of damage.
Why isn't it creature type Juggernaut?
That's
That's a great question.
Because they would have to attack every turn.
Yeah, that's probably correct, yeah.
classic blunder.
But yeah, I mean,
He's got houses on its back.
Does it really?
It used to be a town.
Is this like Howl's Moving Castle weaponized?
Oh, damn.
I don't know. I don't know if it was voluntary.
All right.
See.
Oh, it's big.
I think this card's cool. All right. Voltaics Servant is a 2-mana 1/3 at the beginning of your end step. Untap target artifact. Jer.
This might be the best card printed in Dominaria for Highlander.
Yeah.
It's real good in Time Vault. The reason being is that you play all the Transmute 2s in your deck anyways.
I didn't see that coming.
And it makes it so you can then use the Transmute 2s to find either half of Time Vault, which you couldn't do before, which is a huge deal.
I didn't see that line. Holy moly.
So Dominaria obviously had the leak, and when I saw this card in the leak, I lost my mind. I think this card is, it's a creature, so it's not going to be like completely and utterly abusive, but like this is the kind of card that the printing of it might like force us to put Time Vault back up to 7 points. Like,
And the fact that it's 2 mana is so brutal. A, it's cheap, but B, it's the same cost as Time Vault for Transmute spells.
Yeah.
And like the only format that's relevant in is Highlander, because that's the
Highlander.
only format that is like a singleton format and allows you to play Time Vault.
Yeah.
Wow.
It also has 3 toughness.
Yeah. It's like fairly relevant early in the game.
It also has a Voltaic key in its hand. I don't know whether.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Look at its left arm. It's the Voltaic key.
What?
Yeah.
They knew exactly what they were doing, Alex.
Yeah,
They have the key to the vault.
There's also, if you
Not-
look, the left-hand side behind him there.
Oh, that's cool.
Thran Dynamo. That's
Yeah.
super cool.
The flavor in the set's
Holy
amazing.
moly.
That's awesome.
Dominaria
Bruh.
really nailed it.
All right, let's go to our lands. Let's wrap this up. For starting off, we have the Buddy lands. I'm just talking about all 5 of them at the same time.
Enemy colored buddy lands.
The enemy colored Buddy lands. Give me an example.
Sulfur
Hinterland
Falls.
Harbor.
Sulfur Falls,
Cliff
Hinterland
Top
Harbor.
Retreat.
Woodland Cemetery.
So these are lands that, if you control basically what it taps for, it enters the battlefield untapped. It's exciting that they've finally been reprinted because they were printed in the original Innistrad.
Innistrad, yeah.
And they hadn't been reprinted since. So welcome back, old friend.
They're also beautiful.
You snap get into a lot of decks in this format.
Third best
new art,
dual land cycle,
really
I
good.
think.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Cabal Stronghold. This is one of the new lands. It taps for colorless, or for 3 and tap, add a black for each basic swamp you control. Who am I at? Alex.
It's better and worse than Cabal Coffers.
I think it's mostly worse.
Yeah, like the additional activation, like the additional generic mana worth of activation cost and it counting only basic swamps is pretty lame.
Doesn't combo with
You need
Evoke.
it and 5 swamps before you're netting mana.
But it produces mana by itself, which Cabal Coffers didn't do.
Yeah, like you're probably slamming it into a mono black deck, but beyond that.
Like I mean, maybe in the same way that what was that card that enters tapped and then it finds 2 lands of the same type?
Myriad Landscape.
Mirrored landscape.
Yeah, maybe it's the same kind of thing like that, where it's like you play it early and just sort of use it for colorless, and then eventually you just kind of jump ahead a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
You don't stumble on mana there. All right, we have Memorial to Genius. Is the blue card. Enters the battlefield tapped, tap to add a blue, or for 4 and a blue and sacrifice it, tap and sacrifice it, draw 2 cards. Liam.
Yeah, so this is like Blighted Cataract is the other comparable card to this, which was tapped for colorless.
Yeah.
And then you could sack and you could draw 2 cards. This one's a little cheaper, right?
Yeah.
Blighted Cataract was 6, this is 5.
Yeah.
It does enter tapped, which is a bit of a cost, but I could see control decks being interested in having a land that turns into 2 cards that taps for a reasonable color of mana. Serge, you put this on the list. Was there some kind of lands combo you were thinking of, or you just think it's a reasonable
that's
value
just
card?
it. I thought it just like late game for control deck. They're pretty happy to turn some of their resources into better cards.
This is a slam dunk in Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, and the last card that we're going to talk about today is the Zalfarian Void. It is a land. When it enters the battlefield, scry 1 and tap to add a colorless. Jer.
I actually think this card is also one of the better cards for Dominaria for Highlander. I think people like really underestimated the scry lands. Well, the value of the scry part of the scry lands. I think they correctly evaluated them in that they come in tapped. But I think the fact that this comes in untapped and has the scry attached to it is such a huge deal, and I think this card is great.
Well, team, that's it for our set review today. So a reminder that this is part 1. We wanted to talk about all the cards that were really exciting to us And we really hope that you, watching at home, can let us know, hey, are there any cards that we didn't talk about? There's a couple ones that we left out sort of deliberately, and we want to talk about. Our next episode will be your suggestions. So if you think we missed anything, let us know down below, and we'll put it in. And the cards that we think are maybe not worth it. I don't want to say trap. Help me out. What's another word I'm looking for?
Suboptimal?
Yeah, cards that look good on the surface, but might not be that playable in Highlander.
they're misleading.
We'll talk about that. Misleading cards,
That's
there we
the
go.
one.
So yeah, definitely let us know down below, and we'd love to hear all your suggestions on what you think of the set and the cards we haven't talked about. So let's go to our closing segment today, Powerful Magic. And up to date, to regale us with a story of magical victory or woes, I don't know quite yet, we've got Alex. Alex, tell me a story.
We're back to getting blown out stories.
Of magical woe.
Last week was Channel Epic Experiment. Now we're back to
getting blown out.
All right,
I see.
All right. So my opponent's on mono red,
Okay.
and I'm on zombies.
Nice.
I'm trying to remember if they went first or second, but the board state ended up, they've got Strom Kirknoble, which is a 1/1 vampire for 1.
Yeah.
That gets a plus.
It slits.
It slits every time,
Yeah.
which is to say it gets a +1/+1 counter every time it hits a player.
Drink some blood.
I have Death Baron, which is a 2/2 that gives all other zombies and skeletons +1/+1 and Death Touch.
Cool.
I also have up activation mana for Mutavault,
Okay.
so I'm like, I'll crack in with this 2/2. There's no way he's going to block it.
Yeah.
So I turn it sideways and he doesn't block it. And I'm like, this is sweet. I have Mutavault up to block it because it'll be sweet. Pass to his turn. He, goes to combat and just without hesitation cracks in with Strom Kirknoble. And
Okay.
I'm a little confused. I animate my 3/3 Mutavault, which is a zombie,
And a skeleton.
and say, go to blocks. He's like, Strom Kirknoble can't be blocked by humans.
Okay.
Mutavault has all creature types.
It's a zombie and a human
Oh no.
and a coward.
and
a
a
warrior.
warrior.
Most notably a coward, though, in this case.
Was that for lethal or just like?
No,
just
it was
whoa.
just like a sort of mind blowing, like, oh, you got me.
Oh, that's super funny.
It's just like, oh.
Yeah, all the good sides and the downsides of being all creature types. Oh, that's
I
hilarious.
can't imagine the little burst of excitement in his brain when he saw me walking straight into it.
He's like, oh, he doesn't know.
I'm gonna get him.
Oh, that's really
Was
funny.
it Sam?
I don't remember.
All right,
That's
Was
great.
it on Saturday or Sunday? Sorry.
I think so.
All right, it was probably Sam.
All right, well, that is our episode for today. Thank you so much. And again, a reminder, let us know down below in the comments what you want us to talk about for the next one. We are planning on doing part 2 of our Dominaria set review, Dominaria.
If y'all could just consolidate your Yargle comments into one thread,
Yeah, please.
that'd be helpful.
Just one orderly thread about Yargle.
It dies to lightning.
Or
bolt.
none.
There's a couple cards missing from our set review, and you'll hear about it in our next
Actually,
episode.
send all your comments to @MarkRosewater on Twitter.
All right, so I want to remind everybody that this podcast is brought to you by you with your support over at the Patreon at patreon.com/LoneyReadyRun. And as always, thank you so much. It's great to be back, and we'll see you at the next episode. Thanks.